NASA's Apollo 11 crew achieved the first manned moon landing in 1969, but there are some researchers who question whether NASA has told the entire truth about the landing. Here is what some believe happened during 2 mysterious minutes when Apollo 11 went radio silent. Moon landing experts who have intently studied the Apollo 11 mission have boldly claimed NASA is holding back information on what really happened on the 20th of July, 1969. Shortly after the NASA lunar lander piloted by astronauts Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin touched down on the moon, radio communications were cut short. Appearing on the History Channel's show Ancient Aliens, Dr. Michael Salla, author of Exopolitics, Political Implications of the Extraterrestrial Presence, said the fact has been at the heart of a lot of intense debate. The NASA expert said, during the 1969 Apollo moon mission, after the landing, there was a very strange gap in radio transmissions. What happened in those 2 minutes has been subject to a lot of controversy. Over the years, NASA skeptics and conspiracy theorists have used the 2 minutes of radio silence to challenge NASA and claim humans never went to the moon. Some scientists and NASA researchers have even gone as far as to claim NASA's astronauts came across evidence of alien activity on the moon. One such researcher is book author David Childress, who said communiques of parked UFOs on the moon were intercepted during this gap and withheld from the public. Mr. Childress said, the astronauts apparently talked about seeing extraterrestrial objects on the moon, including flying saucers parked along the edge of a crater within their view. Fellow conspiracy theorist Mike Barra, author of Ancient Aliens on the Moon, similarly alleged NASA's astronauts were stunned by an incredible discovery. Mr. Barra, who also appeared on the History Channel, said both of NASA's astronauts were evidently upset by something they saw on the moon within 30 minutes of landing. The revelation was made by a secret medical channel of communication between Apollo 11 and NASA's mission control on Earth. Mr. Barra said, now the truth of it is that each of the astronauts had a separate medical channel. That channel was not public and it could have been very easily used to communicate information that you didn't want to be heard over the general public transmissions. What is really interesting about that story though, is the fact that within 30 minutes of landing on the moon, that story was circulating around NASA that, hey guess what, they saw something on the rim of the crater. They were all upset. They didn't know what to do. They didn't know if they should go out, and David Whitehead, radio host and creator of the Truth Warrior podcast, argued the story is given credence by the astronauts' tense and sullen body language in post-return interviews. Mr. Whitehead said, it is interesting when you watch the feed of when they came back from the moon and they're not sitting there jumping up and down for joy and saying, I had the most incredible experience of my life. I was on the moon. They're not saying that. They look very sullen, very depressed. They're looking down. They almost look like they want to vomit. That's how disturbed they look. Could they have seen something there that they didn't want to tell the public because of the implications after the success of the Apollo 11? NASA sent 6 more manned crews to the moon before public interest in lunar exploration waned. The last astronaut to walk the moon was Gene Cernan of the Apollo 17 mission, the 11th and final man to set foot on Earth's natural satellite. The fact NASA has not been back to the moon since the Apollo program wrapped up has been another point of contention between conspiracy theorists and moon landing skeptics alike. Alan Butler, author of Who Built the Moon, said on Ancient Aliens, one of the most interesting questions with regard to our interaction with the moon is why we have never gone back there since the end of the Apollo missions. And what else is very telling is that although the USSR at the time was getting to be quite able to send its own astronauts to the moon, it never seems to have done so. Could it be that there were agencies associated with the moon, aliens or other beings who have wanted humanity to stay away from the moon? Quick fact about the 1969 moon landing. 1. NASA's Apollo 11 crew blasted off from Earth on the 16th of July, 1969, from Cape Canaveral, Florida. 2. The Apollo 11 spacecraft took 3 days to reach the lunar orb. 3. Of the 3 Apollo 11 astronauts, Command Module pilot Michael Collins was the only one who did not set foot on the moon. 4. The Apollo crew had to spend 21 days in quarantine after returning to Earth. 5. President Richard Nixon awarded the 3 men the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the highest civilian award in the US. When is NASA going back to the moon? The US Space Agency has boldly announced in February this year it will renew its focus on permanently returning to the moon. NASA Administrator Jim Bridenstine told a press conference NASA will go to the moon as soon as possible. The space agency aims to send remote rovers to Mars by 2024, followed by manned crews in 2028. The NASA chief said, "It's important that we get back to the moon as soon as possible. This time when we go to the moon, we are actually going to stay. We're not going to leave flags and footprints and then come home and not go back for another 50 years.